sorry for sweating. I've been in my garden all day, working my ass off. I've been really trying to put together some thoughts about the whole Yuval situation happening in my feed. And there's a lot of things I have to say. People who have followed me for a very long time know that years and years and years and years and years ago, I posted a meme, I reshared a meme, I reblogged a meme on Tumblr, essentially saying the same thing, that we learn so much about the Holocaust, but we don't learn about other genocides, right? And I got pretty mercilessly dogpiled for that. A Jewish student organization actually started to protest one of my appearances in Victoria, Canada, and it got very, very close to getting canceled. And if you were following me at the time, you know that it was incredibly frustrating for me to get to Canada. But all that aside, I will say before I get into my ultimate thoughts here, that I did appreciate that because it did draw my attention to the fact that I could probably stand to have a better understanding of anti-Semitism. And it led to me connecting with a lot of people and having a lot of conversations that helped me work on trying to become a better ally to Jewish folks. I will also say that it took a while for me after that to recognize that a lot of the people that had directly reached out to me to speak to me about these things were indeed Zionists. And that was actually drawn to my attention when I recently made a couple of statements in support of Palestine. If you guys don't know, my partner is Palestinian. His father was a soccer player who fled Palestine after getting shot by Israelis. So it's one of those things where, like, I don't have a here or there. You know, I have a very specific position on this, right? And I think that what makes sometimes these conversations so complicated is that there are a lot of anti-Semitic tropes that have indeed been used against Jewish people. And then there's also the truth, right? And what a lot of people are struggling with in this conversation is that, like, yes, Israel does impact the way that we learn about the Holocaust in America. What Yuval clearly, I guess, doesn't understand is that a lot of people are educated about the Holocaust in the context of it being the worst thing that ever happened in human history. And what I have a frustration with is that as a Black person in America, I am constantly told that I shouldn't care about slavery, that slavery should be something that I should get over. It shouldn't be something that I even think about anymore. And what's become really clear to me in a lot of these conversations is that a lot of y'all, you operate from this base premise that the natural position for a Black person to be is suffering beneath a white person. And what makes this conversation sort of interesting for me to observe is those ideas are incredibly pregnant in Yuval's video. They're incredibly pregnant in a lot of people's response to this whole conversation, right? It's very clear to me that the person who started this whole conversation, whose name I'm forgetting right now, I do follow her though, is only really being attacked in a certain way because she is a Black woman. And here's the layer of it too that a lot of people are clocking that is so, like, all of these things are all part of the same conversation. A lot of bloggers and creators like Yuval have this, like, arrogant, I'm better than you, I know more than you could never possibly understand anything sort of approach, right? And I feel like Black people are able to see this from a mile away. There's white folks who follow him who are aware that he's arrogant and this and this and that, but they don't ultimately, like, perceive the subtext that I think a lot of Black folks see when they watch that video and have interacted with some of the thoughts that Yuval has shared, right? Like, Yuval is kind of operating from the perspective that this Black woman could never possibly not only understand her own suffering and the suffering of people who look like her, but could never possibly understand his suffering as a Jewish man, his suffering as an Israeli, right? And it's one of those things where it's like, when you're a person of color, when you're a Black person, you are so used to experiencing oppression and then dealing with the cognitive dissonance that people have around that oppression being part of our history, that I think you're able to clock it a bit quicker. Do you know what I mean? Black folks are so used to being dehumanized, right? That's why you see so many Black folks in support of Palestine. And side note, this is another conversation. Do you know that there are a lot of major civil rights figures who have spoken out against Palestine, but that you don't know about that because of what America wants you to believe about Israel? You know, it's one of those things where it's like, all of this, and this is why I was sort of struggling with this, all of this is really about a person thinking that a white person inherently has more value than a Black person, right? Now, I'm not going to get into the whole complex, yes, of course, Jewish people were racialized, yes, all of that's very true. But also, they weren't the only people killed during the Holocaust. But yet I needed to become an adult and take like a college history class before I learned that. Why is that? Why is it that when we talk about the Holocaust, we don't talk about the queer people? We don't talk about Romanis. We don't talk about the Black people. Why? It's for a reason. And it's not a coincidence that Israel, when they're promoting themselves, does this often pandering towards whiteness, right? You look at a gorgeous IDF soldier, she looks a certain way, right? And it's all sort of about that. And when you listen to the way that people speak about Israelis versus Palestinians, it's very clear Palestinians are the dark, scary, people who deserve the violence, and Israelis are the white people who deserve protection, despite the fact that many people who are both Palestinian and Israeli are not that different from each other in terms of their relation, They're the same people. But, that's another conversation. Whole other video, right? Obviously, as a Black woman who has been through a lot of similar shit before, I know exactly what this is. I watched that video and understood what she meant immediately. And because I've been in that situation before, I knew that certain people would react to it a certain way. And it's crazy how, and this is the thing I see over and over again, I've written a lot about this on my website, white folks are able to say whatever the fuck they want. They are granted so much grace. So much grace. We need to be incredibly careful about what we say at all moments, at every second, or we will be dogpiled, attacked, dismissed as a bigot, right? And it's crazy because I think people hear Israel is behind a lot of our education about the Holocaust, and they hear this crazy conspiracy, but no one said that education about the Holocaust was bad, right? No one said, oh my God, we just learned too much about it. And one thing I learned about when I retweeted that meme is that a lot of Jewish people do have trauma response to that, right? Because there are people who argue that we learned too much about the Holocaust. There are people that argue that the Holocaust never existed and it was just a conspiracy, but that's not what she said. And to mar her with that brush, I think was very deliberate. I think was very deliberate. Because if you were listening to what she was saying, no one said education about the Holocaust is bad. They simply said that a lot of it is promoted by Israel, right? And obviously it's like that so that Americans can feel like because of the Holocaust, Israel deserves to exist and America deserves to have a military base in the Middle East. Come on, you guys.
Hello, everyone. This is Editing Madison. I'm just popping in to say a couple of things on the top end of the video. I'm sorry this is long. I had to re-edit this 3 different times, but I think it's good. It's decent now. I'm happy with it. This was edited and filmed in different days, so my emotions vary in terms of how mad I get. Just a warning. I also do want to say that, all the creators' stuff is in my bio. Please check them out. Like I already said in the video, or maybe I haven't, or I have. I don't know where I'm placing this in the video. And if you hit my link tree, the top link, the top 2 links, there's a link for baby Judy, who's trying to get just some help, some humanitarian aid to be able to get food, clean water, and medication in Gaza, as well as to help support her family that is stuck in Gaza. Please check out that link and donate to baby Judy to try and help her and her family. She was, her father was martyred in Han Yunis, and so I would please, if you have anything extra, donate to baby Judy. And then the second link is going to be just my live Google Doc with a lot of organizations to donate to. I will also have baby Judy's link there and other families that I pick up along the way to, put their donation links there as well. I'll just constantly update it and add to it. So if you have any extra money to give, these are all just basically the basic organizations for Congo, Palestine, and Sudan that most creators have been talking about that are just compiled here. So if you're interested, please consider donating. Okay, love you. Mwah. Bye.
When you're dealing with older people, they're the last to know that things have changed. We not your little niggas. Like, the way you talking, I don't get what you mean. We're not your little niggas. Like, for real, all that big homie stuff, that's for little niggas. Little niggas have big homies. We're not little niggas, so we don't even respect big homies. I know Killer doesn't, and for me, I never respected niggas in the streets. That's why I always got the problems I got. Niggas would tell me, Maze, chill. No, chill for what? Who is this nigga?
So I have been going back and forth all week on whether or not I should do this video. I had already hit up all these creators that I wanted to use their videos in this video. I'd gotten their permission. I'd already done some legwork on this. But I was like, should I let it go? What's the vibe? You know, is it good? Should I just leave it and move on? What should I do? But then a couple things happened on my TikTok timeline where I was kind of like, no, I need to let the chopper sing. So basically, one of those things was I was retagged because people have archived Yuval's first video response to me and have been re-uploading it for people to see because obviously he took it down. And then it seems like a lot of creators who have put it back up are getting them taken down. And so people are always tagging me when they re-upload it. And I watched it in totality and I got pissed all over again. So I was like, you know what? This video will be cathartic. You need to say your piece, make it plain. And you know what? It is what the fuck it is. He did this to himself. So I'm not going to sit here and try and spare him. And I'm going to use him as an educational experience. So that's number one. Number two, again, I am so thankful and so in awe and just taken aback by how the community of BIPOC people, of creators in general that heard and did their due diligence to watch my first video in totality, not just the clipped up version that he put out there to frame me in a very particular way. And they watched, they listened to me, they saw what I was trying to say, and they added their 2 cents, whether it was people adding their expertise to the situation, because this was their field of study, people adding in different information that they know, different books, different sources. I mean, it was incredible. It was like an amazing resource exchange that was happening on a little dancing app as a result of what happened between Yuval and I. So in that regard, I'm happy that this whole situation happened, because the discourse was really amazing on a platform for people to be able to have access to and to be able to learn something new. And essentially, sorry, I just got a text. So that was incredible. I also want to say, I want to thank the situation in general because I'm up low-key. I'm up in terms of Substack subscribers, which is great. You guys have gone to subscribe to my dad's Substack, which is amazing. You've subscribed to my YouTube channel in droves. You've followed me on all of my socials that are in my link tree. And I am just so grateful. I feel like this situation put a magnifying glass on me and my opinions, and I was able to glean people who see me in that way and are interested in what I'm trying to put down in terms of the content that I'm trying to create and have been spending years trying to create. So I'm really happy that this situation happened in that sense, and I'm grateful and I'm excited to continue to build up with the momentum with this community. There's so much coming down the pike. I hope you're excited. My podcast episode that was supposed to drop this week is dropping next week or maybe the week after, probably next week, definitely next week because it's filmed. I just need to edit it. But I had to push it back because all of this drama happened unexpectedly, and knowing me, I wanted to make a YouTube video about the situation, not only to memorialize it, but to also finish up my closing thoughts about the situation and just move the fuck on. So that's what we're gonna do. So I have notes here. Sorry. This is gonna be a little crusty. You're getting me fresh off of work, honestly. And we're just going to get into it so we can get it over with. This should be up on Sunday, fingers crossed. And yeah, so I have my notes. And I'm just going to tell you how this is all going to go. So what I was thinking is basically as I alluded to before, I have hit up multiple creators whose videos that I thought better explained my point than I was able to articulate. I look back at some of my response videos, some of my videos, I'm like, everyone's like, you're so articulate. And I'm like, I feel like I was rambling, but whatever. But I cherry picked specific videos that I wanted to embed in this YouTube video for you guys to see, as well as all of the tags for those creators are down below in the description box. So make sure to check these creators out. They had such incredible things to say, and I just wanted to make that plain so that you guys could go check out these other creators. You already likely you know what's going on. You followed me because of the situation. So if you want more creators that I really, really appreciate their input, their intellect, what they're doing on their pages, definitely click down below and go follow them on their socials, check out their content, all of the things. But what I'm going to do is generally I'm going to go chronologically. I took a poll on my Substack earlier this week about what people wanted to see. I was prepared to do a full, I'm reacting to every one of these response videos between Yuval and I back and forth. But then I was like, that would just take too long. And then I also want to have some of these other creators' videos in my video as well. So it would just be like a 40-hour thing. And I just think it's best, since I'm guessing there's at least a little baseline of knowledge of what went on between Yuval and I, that I could just paraphrase those videos, and then you could watch the other creators that I put in this video and see what they have to say about the situation. So to crack things off, I just wanted to start off with this poem that I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with. This is a poem that you basically read in an APUSH class or any kind of American history class, or even world history class. It comes up, and it's called The White Man's Burden, and it's a poem made by or created by Joseph Rudyard Kipling. And he was a poet. He talked about imperialism. He talked about a lot of things. This poem was supposed to be read at the Queen's Diamond Jubilee back in the late 18th century. But it became this kind of iconic poem that we read to this day. A lot of people read in their education when they're learning about American history to this day, because it's indicative of a time period and a thought process that white people held at the time, called The White Man's Burden. So let's read it. The White Man's Burden, written in 1899 by Joseph Rudyard Kipling. Take up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile to serve your captives' need. To wait in heavy harness on fluttered folk and wild, your new caught sullen peoples, half devil and half child. Take up the white man's burden in patience to abide, to veil the threat of terror and check the show of pride, by open speech and simple and 100 times made plain, to seek another's profit, to work another's gain. Take up the white man's burden, the savage wars of peace, fill full the mouth of famine, and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end of others sought, watch sloth and heathen folly. But toil of serf and sweeper, the tale of common things. The ports ye shall not enter, the roads ye shall not tread. Go make them with your living, and mark them with your dead. Take up the white man's burden, and reap his old reward. The blame of those ye better, the hate of those ye guard. The cry of hosts ye humor, slowly towards the light. Why brought ye us from bondage, our loved Egyptian night? Take up the white man's burden, ye dare not stoop to less, nor call too loud on freedom, to cloak your weariness. By all ye cry or whisper, by all ye leave or do, the silent sullen peoples shall weigh of your gods and you. Take up the white man's burden, have done with childish days, the lightly preferred laurel, the easy ungrudged praise, comes now to search your manhood through all the thankless years, cold edged with dear-bought wisdom, the judgment of your peers. Now, I wanted to open up with the White Man's Burden poem, child, because I think it applies to this situation on so many different levels. This is a layered conversation we're having, so just bear with me. The first way is the fact that a lot of the first video, the stitched video that Yuval deleted first, was riddled with a lot of words that were not just Eurocentric, anti-Black and anti-Indigenous, and there's a deep history as to why so many people reacted negatively to the language used in that second part of Yuval's first video towards me. It's because it's indicative of this mindset, right? The white man's burden, this idea that as white people, you're centered in this idea of civilizing the entire world. That was what the white man's burden was all about. We as white men know civility, and these savage, backward, dark, uncivilized places of the planet need us to go in and manage their resources, to meddle with how they govern their own people, to manage their land, all of these things, right? And so this poem speaks to that mentality. And I feel like with Yuval's response, that second half of the response that so many people had such big issue with, it was dripping with such colonial language that made people have such a visceral reaction, which was worrisome because a lot of people looked at Yuval as a intelligent linguist, historically accurate source for their learning and understanding. Now, I'm not saying he's dumb. In fact, I'm saying he's smart. And we'll get into my thoughts about him in general later on in the video. But I think it's important to hammer down why the first video that he deleted was so fucked up and why it got such a visceral reaction. The words he used were dehumanizing words that were used back in this time to basically justify enslaving, stealing, controlling these other countries that were resource rich. Okay, now the white man's burden also fits this situation on another level. In my first video, the initial video that cracked this whole bitch open, I was really wanting to talk more about how we are taught history and investigating that. Because a lot of times that's an invisible mechanism. You just go to school, your teacher says what you're supposed to do, you do the assignment, you pass the class, you fail the class, you move on. But a lot of people don't sit there and think about what it takes for us to learn the information that we do know and what is at play when we're being taught about history. I know a lot of us are told in our history class, like, oh, history's written by the winners, right? Well, that's not true. History that people think is legitimate is written by the winners. Everyone that's been a victim of colonization, imperialism, slavery, genocides by the Western world, they have their own histories as well. It's just not legitimized by the system because it's a Western-centered system. So again, when Yuval was speaking what he was speaking, it was pointing to this degradation and devaluing of contributions made by BIPOC individuals, Indigenous individuals, Black individuals in general. But it was also just a historical period. I want to talk about the title of this because I've read this poem multiple times in multiple different history classes. It's like one of those things that your A-push teacher, your American history teacher is going to bring out at some point to like describe the mentality of the time. And I always knew this poem only being titled The White Man's Burden. That's how I knew it. But the true title is The White Man's Burden, the United States and the Philippine Islands. Now, this is important, right? This is what I talk about when it comes to learning about history and what do they choose to tell you. I only knew this poem as this being the title, not the second part, right? Now, the second part is interesting because when I was doing research on, just certain things about this poem in particular and just trying to get the wording right and picking the right site, I found that a lot of people didn't know there's another part of this title. They just know it as The White Man's Burden poem by Kipling, and it's supposed to position itself when we're learning about it, when we're reading it in our classrooms, as this primary source of the time that's like a snapshot into into the mindset of white people at the time. That's how you're reading this, right? That's how you're reading this. The truth is, the second part of the title that gets often omitted is incredibly important because it changes this from being just artistic expression of the time and shapes it actually into something that was pushing a narrative that actually happened. What I found out is he didn't write this poem just to write this poem about the white man's burden. He wrote this poem to convince white American males to take up the white man's burden, specifically in annexing the Philippine Islands. So it wasn't just the white man's burden, enlightenment, we are civilizing society, we're civilizing the world. No, this was written as a direct call to arms for white men in the United States to take action and to support the annexation of the Philippine Islands, which, became like a proxy colony because of that, right? Now, I say this to say, in Yuval's, I think, second or third, because he made multiple, second or third video, he goes to say he completely understood what I was saying. And, when he watched my video where I was apologizing for my vagueness initially. And I was talking about the Israeli lobbies that affect our education system and kind of explaining that. He was like, well, you had some vague, far off explanation and example of that. And the only explanation you could come up with was the fact that campaigns to change wording in textbooks in our education system. Now, the specific wording that I pointed out, I thought was poignant enough, but let me spell it out for you. The ICS basically is a nonprofit organization that creates curricula around the Holocaust and teacher trainings about how to train teachers to teach about the Holocaust how they see fit. You see what I mean? Now, one of the examples I stated was that, what they do is they also audit textbooks that are being sent out to children, and they look through it and look through if they mention the Palestine and Israel and the formation of that, how do they speak about it? And oftentimes they'll change words and say, instead of Israeli settlers, you're going to put community of Israeli people. That is one of the most, people don't see that as a violent action, right? People see that as you're just swapping a couple words. And that's how Yuval said in his video when he was responding to me about that, that's benign. They're changing a couple words. But how does this poem change when you actively omit the second part of the title? Do you see what I mean? It changes from artistic expression. It changes from something where this artist is talking about the white man's burden and it's of the times, and that's how white people are thinking. When you add in the second part, and then you look into why he wrote this in the first place, and then you see that this poem was cited on the congressional floor to advocate for the annexation of the Philippine Islands and have America have, control over the Philippine Islands. It changes the context of this poem completely. Do you see what I mean? And this is just something that I stumbled on. I only know this as a white man's burden, but now I know it as something that was quoted on the congressional floor in support of annexing the Philippine Islands when that was up into question, right? This is why the granular fucking matters, and that's why his takes and his responses rang hollow to me every time he came back online to respond, because he was trying to grasp at something in order to kind of belittle what I was saying. First of all, I was correct, Bae, and you can't move me from, force me to recant being truthful and speaking truth into existence. What I said was true.
History is wielded, dispensed, sanitized.
I don't think that people understand the role that European historiography has had in shaping the world that we have at this moment. How the de-emphasizing of all of the atrocities that, for instance, the Allies did during the Second World War allow the Western liberal democracies that we have today to not only police the world, but also set out its rules. The historiography that we have today is the reason why people worship Churchill. He said it himself, that he was going to be portrayed by history in a positive manner because he was going to make sure that he wrote it himself. We are all the victims of a system of propaganda that had very particular goals, and that is very apt to choose which victims to lionize and which victims to de-emphasize. And this is not to take away the horror of any type of persecution, because all of them are horrendous, regardless, and I emphasize this, regardless of the motives of the people who carry out the persecutions. Because impact over intention. Because let's put our thinking caps on for a second. To be able to carry out the exploitation of labor of people whilst mistreating them worse than you would cattle, that means that by and large you do not consider that person to be as worthy of respect as cattle. And if that's not a bad intention, I do not know what is. And we need to understand, in my opinion as well, that the fact that this argument even exists is by design. That's why proximity to whiteness is given as candy, strategically, to make sure that we internalize the idea that we need to have a seat at the table rather than us thinking about it and thinking that we should smash the table and smash the structure of ideology that sustains the table.
Look at this. This is an example that's tangible in my hand about how we are taught about history realistically. We are not taught truth. We are taught indoctrination. And clearly, you may think it's too granular of an example when I was talking about how they changed Israeli settler to, community of Israeli people. But they purposely omit this second part of this title for this poem for a reason. You don't want me to get granular? Then you don't get granular first. Why are you trying to hide details like this? But it's because it's that mentality of, oh, that's too small. That's too small. You're harping on something too small. No, the small begets the big, boo. Okay, them changing it and having the power to change what's in truth in textbook completely changes the context for which we're learning about the history, boo. It is what it is. It's like what I said in that video when they were trying in Florida or Texas, I forgot, a couple years ago to change slave to immigrant in the textbook. Slave as a word has meaning to it, has weight to it. There's a power dynamic associated with that word. Immigrant has a different meaning to it. So trying to replace those things fundamentally changes the fucking story. It's these tiny granular things, but in well-placed moments that happen that allow history to be sanitized and to be censored. I think that as grown people, if you're trying to be more knowledgeable, be more insightful, be more well-versed in knowing what's going on in the world, a good place to start is to decenter white men from that narrative and center in some marginalized BIPOC individuals. And I think you'll get a better understanding of the truth. That's just me. On top of that, I just want to also address for people saying, well, Yuval's a good person. Yuval's a good person. I'm grown. And I don't give people the benefit of the doubt if I can't personally vouch for you. The only thing I know about Yuval is the stalking content and the fact that he sent 3 million people my way to racially attack me. So for you to want me to listen to those apologies in good faith, even though he deleted one and where he doubled down and the third one was barely an apology. I mean, I don't know what you're asking for. I'm not going to absolve you for continuing to listen or wanting to eat up Yuval's content. That's on you. You're grown. Make your own decision. I'm not going to absolve you publicly and absolve him publicly by being pressured by you while you're saying, oh, he already apologized. How many times does he need to apologize? Just because you guys aren't attuned to see how fucked up it is, it's indicative of the fact that you have more unlearning to do and you're not quite as informed as you think you are. I'm not going to sit here and absolve you for wanting to continue to take in his content. Continue to do whatever the fuck you want to do. But I'm not going to be the vehicle for which you can now say, okay, now it's okay for me to watch Yuval's videos and stuff like that. No, you're going to have to deal with this duality. I'm not going to clear shit up for him. He did that. He came out crazy to me, and I'm not forgiving him. So I don't know what you want me to do. You have to live in that world. If you want to listen to his content continuously, that's fine. I'm not going to publicly absolve him. I'm not going to publicly forgive him. It is just simply what it is, and we're ending it there. Okay? So for the people in the back who had questions and concerns. There we go. Video one came out. Let me get my phone so we can be accurate. So I posted this video. This is a video in question. Sorry. The one in the middle. This one. Okay. This is the video. I posted this video on the 10th of July. Okay. Now, I posted this video because in the corners of the internet, in the corners of TikTok where I reside, this wasn't a controversial take. The girls that got it, and the girls that didn't get it, they just didn't get it, or they didn't see it until Yuval brought them to my door. That creator that you see in the stitch, that creator, I forgot what their handle is. I have autism. Let me actually look and see what their handle is. Actual @ is Silver 2010 Honda Accord, which I very much vibe with. Basically, they made a video that was saying, hey, the Holocaust is basically cracking open the conversation that I kind of walked through. And they weren't wrong. They were not wrong. But that creator, that original video, I think they either deleted or put it on private. So by the time I was trying to actually stitch them, I couldn't. So I had to take a clip and then I made my piece. Now, if you haven't seen that video, go to my page and watch it. I'm basically talking about, and honestly, there were some verbal missteps at the beginning that I could have been more, again, specific about, and that's what I apologize for. But basically what I was saying is the reason why the Holocaust is centralized in American and Western education is because there's a vested interest in that to be the case. No other mass death is covered in the way the Holocaust is covered in K through 12 education. Fight your mom about that. Don't fight me about it. I'm just speaking fucking facts. They do not talk about the Rwandan genocide nearly as much as they talk about the Holocaust. They do not talk about the Cambodian genocide. They don't talk about fucking slavery nearly as much as they talk about the Holocaust. That is facts. And the facts and the proof presented themselves as the week wore on. Scholars, PhDs, people who actually write books on this shit came in and supported that.
I saw it, and all I'm going to say is this. If you and another educated person are having a heated conversation or having a debate, right, whether some words get messed up here, some interpretations get messed up, if you're having a heated conversation, and then docs and postdocs that the other person does not know start showing up out of the woodwork telling you that she's right and you're wrong, you're wrong. There's no room for doubling down after that. You, sir, are incorrect. Like, you got niggas with like 10 years in the field, motherfuckers working in museums, postdocs, PhD students, people who wrote dissertations, papers, this, that, out the wazoo. And all of them are like, hey, what she's saying happened. Like, and she expanded upon it in the second video and apologized for wording, but what she's saying happened. And they're also going, what you're saying is kind of racist, it's kind of a dog whistle, you're kind of pulling a little fucking misogynoir, is that how you pronounce that word? Then you're wrong, dude. There's no space for doubling down. There's no room. You, at that point, you just gotta be like, I fucked up, bruh. I dropped the ball. I misinterpreted the thesis. I was incorrect. Like, it's okay to be wrong about shit. It's not a crime. That would be like if I was still in the lab I'm working at, right? You know what I'm saying? First unemployed Monday. If I was still in that lab and fucked up one of my PI's experiments, and everybody who, who's a postdoc or a PhD or has a master's on that floor is telling me I fucked up the experiment, then I was like, I'm sorry you felt that way. But in my subjective experience, I assumed that running the experiment this way would be fucking... It don't matter. None of that matters. None of that matters. You're incorrect, bro. You're incorrect. Like, and I fucked up. My fault, gang. I misinterpreted the thesis. It really goes a long way, bro. You can't double down on shaky footing, bro. You'll fall. You will fall.
Because the way we are taught history as a tool of indoctrination, but not a tool of truth. So we learn about things in a very linear sense and not a circular, holistic sense that's thematic.
As a trained archival historian who focuses particularly on the subject of slavery, I wanted to come back to this video because I feel like it ended up being the inadvertent launch point for a comparative discussion about slavery and the Holocaust, and it really shouldn't have been, because that was never the point. That was never the point. The point this creator was making was never a comparative one, and it actually is an accurate point. The way that we are taught history, in the fact that it is linear, especially in the American education system, is reductive. It is what allows the general public to have such a widespread misconception of what slavery is and was. Most people didn't even know that there was an East African slave trade. Most people are not even familiar with the Arab slave trade, which is already a problem, because as this creator says in the video, it lasted from the 7th century and literally ended in like the 60s. And ended is honestly rough. Okay, so let me just go ahead and say that when you start looking at history thematically, and when you stop trying to follow a specific timeline,
it makes a lot more sense why slavery is not comparable to anything else. Off of sheer duration alone, so many things happened during the time period with which slavery was occurring that makes it unique to anything else. The way that slavery is recorded in historical narratives, the fact that majority of the accounts of slavery come from the perspective of enslavers and non-enslaved people, because at no point during slavery did enslaved people ever have agency to tell their own historical narratives. Like, everything about it is unique. Everything about it is different. It's not comparable, which I think is the point that this creator was really trying to make, that got taken wildly out of context. Because contrary to responses that are being made, slavery, the slave trades, holistically, not ending until the 1960s, does state the obvious point that slavery was occurring in civilized societies. In fact, slavery is what built the majority of the world's civilized societies. Slavery has contributed to the shaping of systemic structures that exist and permeate in these civilized societies. Slavery is not detached from the civilized world. In fact, slavery is the foundation of it. So, yeah, I wanted to come back to that video to just emphasize the point of, like, first of all, why did y'all take that video out of context like that? Second of all, as an archival historian who focuses on the subject of slavery, that is correct. When you start viewing history and themes, you begin to understand that there are so many connections, so many different things that we don't even realize are happening, and we're taught to view historical events almost in a vacuum, as if, like, oh, this is happening, and then this thing is happening, and this thing, and it's really, that's not how it is. They're all influencing each other. They're all existing within the same socio-political sphere. Like, when British Industrial Revolution is going on, slavery is still happening. Like, there's still things, they're connected. They're connected. So, I just wanted to say that, yeah, and go watch that creator's video, because it's honestly very impactful, and it makes a lot of sense, and be open-minded and stop jumping to conclusions, basically.
Now, I'm going to insert a video of my good girl, Tired. They basically made a video that kind of cleared up and was very detailed and with sources and information about what I was exactly talking about.
So I'm sure you've seen Yuval's video that has since been taken down, or you've seen a stitch of it, or somebody with their 2 cents. And here I am to put in my 2 cents as somebody who has studied the Holocaust and World War II for 10 years. I've written a course about it. I have taught about it. I'm writing a book about how to teach about World War II better, because it's not taught about very well in the United States, and this is very relevant to this conversation. And I'm also writing a very controversial book, a comparative analysis of the genocides and why we only teach about one. This video is going to be really long, and it's going to be several parts, and I'm going to say a lot of words that the algorithm really doesn't like, so make sure to interact, please. So this all started when a Blaque creator said that Israel paid for the Holocaust to be prominent in American and Western education, and they are correct. And then Yuval went on a 7-minute tirade about it. Now, I think Yuval said that word choice matters, and it does, and his word choice was not super great in his video. So when you say Israel paid for Holocaust education, what you mean is Israeli lobbyists, Israeli organizations, and organizations like the United Holocaust Memorial Museum paid for it.
The reason why most people think that the Holocaust is the worst tragedy to ever happen to humanity in the modern era is because Israel paid for that to be the reality. Because the numbers just actually aren't there.
Yes, they are. You have to be so willfully detached from reality to even begin to suggest that the only reason that the Holocaust is taken as seriously as it is because Israel paid for it.
Saying things like this really triggers some people because it makes you think that it's an anti-Semitic trope of the Jews control the world with money. Now, that is anti-Semitic, but it's factual to say that Israeli organizations lobby for Holocaust education. Israel has, in fact, paid for it since the late 1960s, and until then, there were only a few books, namely a book by Hannah Arendt and another by Raoul Hilberg, and those were very controversial. Raoul actually had, like, over 20 members of his family perish in the Holocaust, so he's very connected to this, and he's one of the leading prominent Holocaust historians. And when his book came out, The Destruction of the European Jew, everyone was like, no, we don't want to dredge up the past. Don't talk about it. Especially American Jews who wanted to distance themselves from Israel. In 1967, after the Israelis won in an Arab-Israeli war, the U.S. decided that Israel would be a good proxy for power in the Middle East. And that's when people started to remember the Holocaust and fear this propaganda that there would be a second Holocaust to come. That's why they needed all this power. That, along with saying that anything that is criticism of Israel is just inherently anti-Semitic, is all part of Israeli propaganda to garner support and deflect criticism.
I want to be clear, I think it's strange to say anything is the worst thing to ever happen in human history, because I think it is bizarre to rank tragedies.
Many people have pointed out the pure irony in you saying that it's bizarre to compare or rank tragedies, and then you go on to promote the complete uniqueness of the Holocaust, thereby ranking it above everything else.
But I also think it is very weird to respond to somebody who's saying, I think X is the worst thing to ever happen to humankind, whether that be the Holocaust, slavery, colonialism, and respond by going, well, actually, and then citing some other event that had a larger body count.
Are you not well-actualing her? Sure, I guess for a minute, and then I'm going to sleep. I should have done that an hour ago. But a lot of people are really confused about this, and it's because you're misconstruing her words, and it really highlights the fact that people of color have to explain themselves out the ass just for people to not purposefully misconstrue their words. She did not deny the Holocaust happened, nor did she diminish Jewish suffering. She only said that the numbers are not there to justify the Jewish Holocaust, right? Because there have been more than one, because Holocaust is just a synonym for genocide, but that the numbers are not there for the Holocaust to be considered the peak of all genocides and the worst genocide, the worst tragedy to happen in human history. She said that the numbers don't support it being the worst tragedy because it was not the worst as in body count or even bodies per day or even bodies per year. Her entire point, and my entire point, is that the Jewish Holocaust is not the pinnacle of all human suffering. It's not the worst. We shouldn't be placing one above all the others as far as importance. There are similarities between all of them, and some of them have higher death counts. But that doesn't mean that the Holocaust, sitting at 6 million, is A, the highest, because it's not, and it doesn't mean that it is B, the most important to learn about. That was her fucking point. Yuval tried hard to prove that the Jewish Holocaust was the worst in terms of how many bodies per day or per month or per year. He tried, but he got the statistics wrong, and I disproved some of those in my videos. But what he also forgot was the statistics of everyone else who died during the entire Holocaust, because that is more specific than saying Jewish Holocaust, because it didn't just happen to Jewish people. But the whole point is that Jewish suffering and the Jewish Holocaust has always been placed at the forefront, the prominence of Holocaust education. So much so that students in Western nations do not learn about other genocides, especially ones that people of our complexion committed in the land that we now live, and especially the other people that the whole entire Holocaust of World War II affected in Europe alone. I'm not even gonna get into the 3 to 30 million, yes, it's a large range, of Chinese civilians that the Japanese killed. Not even gonna get into that in this. That's for my book.
But yeah, so that video went out again. I was getting love the first couple of days it was out. I was like, okay, like it's very much feast or famine on my page on TikTok. Like some videos do incredible and other videos are in like 200 jail. It's never in between. So this was actually shaping up to be a good old weekend for good Madiswan, okay? My boyfriend was in town. We had a lot of things planned. I had a video doing well. I was gonna get a bag off of that to put into my new car fund. I was gaining subscribers to my YouTube channel. Things were looking up. And then that Friday, I was at work, in the middle of work, mind you, because I still work a day job, and I was sent a message. And that message was somebody, I wasn't sent a message, I was sent a couple messages, but I was also, people were commenting on other videos of mine trying to get my attention, saying, you've all stitched your video, you've all stitched my video. I didn't know that because I wasn't notified that he had stitched a video or anything. I just kept getting these comments. Now, mind you, I had seen Yuval's content before, but he wasn't facially recognizable, nor was he name recognizable. So them saying Yuval, I was kind of like, who's Yuval? Like, I don't even know what this means, but clearly it's something. And to be honest, my delusional ass was like, okay, well, I know I'm right, so they best be underscoring this, and maybe this video is gonna go even more crazy, and I can put more money away in my car fund. We good. So my stupid ass was like, okay, let me look it up. See my face on there? Bitch. That clip played, and he was like, you must be willfully attached from society or whatever, willfully detached from the world or some bullshit like that. And I was like, oh shit, my stupid ass thought you were gonna agree with me, and here we are now in a situation I was woefully unprepared for, where now I have a creator with over 3 million followers who's not only disagreeing with me, he's trying to engage me in something, and he's framing me like a Holocaust denier and an anti-Semite. Oh, bitch. You best believe I'd put that phone down. I was like, okay, let's put that face down and let's just stare into space for a moment, because what the fuck are we going to do? What are we going to do? Because I knew, first of all, I know the demographic. I've been tapped into what's been going on to even just the students protesting on their college campuses against Israel and the genocide. You know what I'm saying? And so I was just in it of itself, just extremely, extremely nervous because I was like, okay, they're known to dox. Like, weird shit has been going on. So 3 million people and you're framing me like this? Okay. Let me actually pause here, and I want to shout out to my mutual. My mutual really got into the field with me, got to it for me, which is something that I didn't expect. I haven't created a lot of community on TikTok with a lot of other creators. I've kind of stayed in my own corner of the internet, and when my videos go viral, they do. I'm friendly with some people, but I had been mutuals with my mutual, Havengodofmischief. Go check them out. This is their page, Havengodofmischief. We had been mutuals for a while, and I think we started becoming mutuals earlier in the year when I made a video about Haiti. I'm not sure. But we've been mutuals for a little while. And, just commenting, liking stuff, very casual. By no means did they have to get in the field for me like they did. Type thing. No relationship really, just the fact that we are mutuals and they've watched my videos and I've watched their videos and I get their point of view and we kind of support each other online. My mutual, ciao, came out the gate with the first video in support of me directed at Yuval in response to Yuval's video. And I just want to take the time to sit here and just say, thank you. You really didn't have to, but you did, and that is really what changed the tides. I feel like people were kind of like, does she even know what she's talking about? She's going against Yuval. I know Yuval. There's name recognition. There's facial recognition. So we're gonna trust Yuval over this random bitch. But when my mutual Havengodofmischief got into the field for me, okay, and made that video on my behalf, it really began to switch the tides up. Now, I'm going to obviously insert that video out.
How we decide who knows what, when they know it, and how they know.
This right here is one of the main points that people engaging with Maddie's video are actively ignoring. And I think that is very dangerous. So much so that it is going to be the detriment to those of us living in the global north. Let's take Yuval's response to Maddie's video as an example, right? Yuval gives us a breakdown as to why the Holocaust was such a prolific iteration of human atrocity and genocide, right? And one of the examples that he gives is the fact that Germany was so systemically efficient at eradicating the Jewish people. This is why the Holocaust stands apart. And yet you can tell in his rhetoric that there is no acknowledgement of the fact that we are taught only that Germany was efficient. We are not taught how Germany became efficient. We are not taught how Germany reached that level of evil. And I don't think that's by accident. The first iteration of German concentration camps were not invented by Smotsy Germany, nor were they first enacted within the borders of Germany. In 1908, the German Empire invaded Namibia, a peninsula of Namibia, which would later be called Death Island. And it was called Death Island because the German Empire created concentration camps to eradicate the Herero and Namaqua people. So that atrocity, that genocide, is directly linked to the Holocaust. And yet, no one knows that history, let alone that it's connected. There are multiple entities, both private, non-governmental, and governmental entities, whose interests converge when it comes to cultivating an ignorance for the people living in the global north. If we were to understand the Holocaust with a less westernized and compartmentalized understanding and a more globalized understanding, I think we would learn, one, that atrocity did not happen in isolation. It was an atrocity that was a part of a network of atrocities enacted by the same entities. And those entities are still alive and kicking, cultivating new atrocities that are also very much connected. And not only would we learn that, but we would also learn how easy it is for nations in the global north to enact the terroristic policies that they push on the global south inward. How easy it is
for the terrorism of colonization to be enacted against their very own citizens. If we were to have that learning, then we would be able to see the red flags, the precursors. We might fuck around and be able to be proactive against genocide rather than reactive and woefully ill-equipped at stopping them or repairing their harm. Who gets to teach this history and what parts of the history they get to teach is very important. It's very much propagandized, and there's a reason for that. And it is the cause for a lot of the disconnect. It's the cause for a lot of reasons why people cannot see the connection between Palestine, West New Guinea, Congo, Kashmir, so on and so forth. All of these atrocities are connected. They're not happening in a vacuum. But we can't understand that concept if we're not taught it. We can't understand that concept if what we are taught is a propagandized version of actual history. And I feel like we owe it to the victims of these genocides. We owe it to the victims of these atrocities to, at the very least, try to deconstruct this bullshit. Deconstruct our conditioning so that we can at least fucking acknowledge their existence, yo.
So let's back to Yuval's video. So it was a terrible video, and I'm going to keep it a bean with you guys. I didn't watch all of it before I made that second response, that you guys really seem to like. I didn't watch all of it. And that's why some of the uncivilized comments, the anti-Black, anti-Indigenous comments weren't necessarily addressed. People thought I was really taking the high road. The truth is, I don't take kindly to being talked down to. I just don't. And the tone, the condescension of that video, as soon as I got over the shock of thinking this dude was going to agree with me, which was dumb as hell, then it was the talking down to, the condescension that I just don't do well with. I've never done well with it when it came to dating. I've never done well with that when it came to just friendships. It just never sits right with me because you don't talk down to me. That's something that I just hate. You're going to respect me. And so 2 minutes in was all I could give it in good faith before I cut that bitch off, because it was just like, oh, you're pissing me the fuck off. I don't like to be explained to in that regard. Check your tone at the door if you're addressing me. Don't address me on some, I'm gonna, big homie you. Okay, you can't big homie me. I don't respect big homies. I don't. So I'm a knowledgeable, smart bitch, and we're gonna give you 2 minutes. And that's it. I want to talk about specifically how Yuval stitched me, because I said this in my final response to Yuval on TikTok, but I just want to hammer it home once more. To find out you have been stitched by people commenting on your random videos to get your attention is something.
Not even including the 5 million non-Jews that were killed during the Holocaust, so in truth, all these numbers are almost double. You're going to struggle to find that kind of rate.
Forgive me, for I'm going to read off of my computer screen to get these numbers correct, because this is from my book that I'm writing about genocides. 1 million non-Slavic Polish civilians were killed by the Germans, and it shouldn't be forgotten that 150,000 Poles were also killed by the Soviets. 10.3 to 21.77 million Slavic people were killed by the Germans. That's just civilians. It breaks down into 4.5 up to 10 million Soviet civilians who died due to direct war violence, like bombing raids, executions, etc. And another 4 to 9 million Soviet civilians who died from war-related disease or famine. And another 1.8 to 2.77 million ethnic Polish people. They were Slavic people. 250,000 disabled civilians, and 250,000 to 500,000 Romani and Sinti people, and 300,000 to 400,000 people were legally sterilized. Many thousands of them were forcibly sterilized, though, but we don't know the numbers of that. But out of the people who were sterilized, many thousands of them died from unclean surgical practices or a lack, a non-existence of pain management. Thousands more deaths from groups such as Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, the queer community, criminals, or asocials, as they call them, civilian resistance members, etc., etc. Not to mention the 5,000 disabled, mostly autistic kids that they just thought were psychopaths and unfit for society.
That is an average of 4,000 people killed a day. During the worst 100-day stretch of the Holocaust, nearly 1.5 million Jews were killed, averaging over 14,000 Jews a day.
What about Rwanda, since you want to rank genocides based on a per-day death rate? Rwanda was 100 days long, and it had 1 million deaths. The average daily death rate is 10,000, with some days surging well over 14,000. I forgot to add, so I had to come back to this. What about the British occupation of India? In 89 years, 100 to 150 million people died. Someone do the math for me on that, on how many people per day that is.
That it was just barbarism and savagery.
And on the topic of countries that people deem as savages, therefore okay to colonize, what about the indigenous peoples of America? In the first 108 years of colonization, 56 million people died. That's not even including the continued genocide.
Obviously a level of sadism to saying something like, I want what you have, and I don't care how you feel about it, right? We expect that out of animals. But there is something very uniquely horrifying about saying, I don't want what you have. I don't want your money. I don't want your land. And in fact, I do care how you feel, in that I want you to suffer.
Careful, you're dabbling in the idea of Jewish exceptionality, that Jewish suffering is more important than anybody else's suffering. You think that no other genocide intended for people to suffer, that the Jewish Holocaust was the only one that wanted them to suffer? You think that?
It wasn't just that it happened within a civilized society or a modern world, but Germany specifically.
First of all, somebody called the racism watchdog. Whoa. While I do agree that it is like bizarre to bring tragedies, as Yuval said, I also think that like it is important to understand that like the education that we get inherently brings tragedy. And creating an entire video talking about how it was functionally the worst one in the entire world, like I think that also kind of defeats the entire purpose of saying that. In the second half of Madison's follow-up video, she talks like very beautifully about how like the point of her entire argument was that learning about genocides in totality, like learning about the different forms they can take, how they can look across different cultures, and like what they can actually like what kind of sets the state up to commit a genocide, like what the warning signs are, and then how to actually like avert them once they get on the course of that route. Like that was, I think, very clearly her point. I think it is fairly intellectually dishonest to not talk about how American education does have like political implications, how they do teach about certain things for the express purpose of like indoctrination of the people in this country. Like the reason why Black people like kind of fought or kind of fight currently to get the transatlantic slave trade seen as a genocide, and like the American government seen as like the perpetrators of a genocide, is because like the well of American slavery and like the well of anti-Blackness literally runs so deep that it does rival like the total all-encompassing type of genocidal intent that was perpetuated by the Nazis. People don't know about the roles that the British government and the American government and the French government and the Spanish government had played in like the worst like human atrocities that have ever occurred in the entire world. People say all the time that we're the United States of Israel, but really Israel is another colony of the United States. And learning about the Holocaust and the way that we do, and like the total like all-encompassing way we do, like I've met Holocaust survivors in my life. That was part of my curriculum when I was in middle school. Like in doing that, it creates like the sort of like national consciousness that, oh yeah, the Jewish people are a uniquely persecuted people that need their own like homogenous ethno-state. And so then it sort of like sets them up to be able to send like millions, billions of dollars of weapons to the state to like sort of like prop itself up, when in reality like Israel is really just an extended American military base. Also talking about the Holocaust to the extent that we do without talking about literally anything else, because I know that like people can probably name like 3 genocides off the top of their head, like, and then the Nazis are probably the first one, the Rwandan genocide is probably the second one, and then some people probably want to recognize the transatlantic slave trade as like the third one. Like I feel like those are like the major ones people know about. But there have been so many genocides, and they all look very different, but they all have like very like clear patterns and very like they function in very similar ways. But like nobody really can actually name what those steps are unless you're like studying genocide in some kind of way, unless you're like trying to purposely educate yourself about that kind of thing. Anyway, so learning about the Holocaust and the way we do, and like also talking about how the Nazis are like uniquely violent and uniquely depraved, and talking about them in the way that we do also absolves the American government from not doing very much while the Holocaust was happening, absolves the British government from not doing very much while the Holocaust was happening. It kind of absolves like everybody else that kind of sat on their hands and did nothing while its atrocity was kind of unfolding, by talking about the Nazis as like a uniquely horrible, uniquely evil like force that was like almost unstoppable. Like it really absolves a lot of people of like guilt and responsibility like on the world stage. I think people feel very sensitive about like the concept of Israel having power over the American government, when like I've been saying this for like literally like I think 6 months now. It is the other way around. Like they do not control us, we control them, and like there is so much political and economic benefit to having a foothold in the Middle East, because no other country was going to allow that to happen. Like no other country was going to like allow it to happen for like a long period of time, especially. And then also the billions of dollars worth of natural gas that is underneath the land of Israel. They're trying to colonize the entire area. And what happens if you colonize the entire area of the Middle East, like the entire fucking like section? That's just like literally probably $1 trillion worth of natural gas. The way that capitalism functions is that they're doing things for money. They're doing things to prop up the system of capitalism, because capitalism requires an endless amount of resource, because it has to continually grow. If it doesn't grow, it crashes, which is why we're in recession every single 10 fucking years, which is why like every other there's always some economic disaster going on, because like continuous growth like that is literally impossible. The Jewish people are not a uniquely powerful, like government controlling force of people. They are a scapegoat for like colonial powers to colonize an entire area of land that they would have otherwise had no real access to. And so like I, as someone that grew up like in a heavily Jewish area, like I think I went to a handful of like bar mitzvahs when I was a child, like I hate to see like the Jewish faith and the Jewish people be bastardized and be used as like this kind of scapegoat, where like like the American government and other governments sort of are taking advantage of the like already pervasive anti-Semitism in this country, and then making it a trillion times worse by making Jewish people out to be like, some like mind-controlling, government-controlling people, when really they're just being used for like a means to an end. Anyways, though, conclusion, the Holocaust was fucking horrible. But to talk about it in the lens of, like it being in a civilized modern world, it's not driven by barbarism, it's driven by, the wish for human suffering. Like, there are a lot of fucking things that are driven by, like, a wish for human suffering. There are a lot of things that are driven by, scapegoating a group of people. Like, and I think it would be important to recognize them all, like, in some kind of way, rather than talk about the ones that have, like, political benefit, to set up a narrative that would, absolve the government of responsibility for, literally funding a genocide. I also have more thoughts in a part 2. Also, learning about the Holocaust or racism or homophobia in the kind of the way that we do in the United States sort of sets people up to only be able to recognize things when they occur in one singular way. Trigger warning for, like, conversation about just generally, like, racist, violent, bigoted, homophobic sort of conversation. I know I don't like to hear a lot of the time without a warning, so here's this for you. But people think that racism can only exist as, like, calling black people the hard ER and lynching people from trees. Like, racism exists in so many forms, and people don't even know when they're being racist so often because they think that racism can only look one certain way because they're only taught about it looking like one certain thing. People think that homophobia is just, like, calling someone, I'm not even really calling someone the F-star, because the F-star kind of is running amok right now. I hate you people. But, like, they genuinely think it's only just, like, saying, I hate gay people. Like, and then even then they don't think that's homophobic, because sometimes they're like, well, I just don't like them because they put it in everyone's face, like, you just don't like them because you don't like seeing them exist. It reminds me a lot of how in Europe people think that racism doesn't exist because they think that their racism is like an observational fact about the world. They're like, oh, we don't hate the Romani people. They're just like really lazy and like they don't know how to work and they like stink and they have bad food. And you're like, okay, well that actually is racism. And they're like, no, it's not. That's just true. And you're like, whoa, like, see, that is exactly what we're talking about. Like, people think a genocide can only occur when you round people up, put them in a separate camp, and then kill them all in a very, like, sophisticated, very civilized way. They think it's a unique thing that can only really happen, like, in, like, a very specific set of circumstances. They think it's, like, something that can only really occur against, like, especially white people. Like, it's just a whole list of things that people are not able to, like, recognize these kind of, like, issues because they learned about it in one specific way, and then that's just literally it. Again, a lot of the reason why the American slave trade and, like, the transatlantic slave trade and American race-based slavery is not considered genocide in a lot of people's minds is because, like, they're not learning about it as extensively as they're learning about other genocides. Like, they don't know that, like, the hair of black people was used to, like, stuff chairs, and that black people's teeth were pulled out to make dentures, and that George Washington and his fucking self wore a set of dentures that were taken from enslaved people. We don't know that there are, like, probably millions of unmarked graves of black people and, like, people of the African diaspora that were just walking on at any point in time. Like, they literally have to rip trees out because of how oh my god, I can't even talk about it. It's just the hottest fucking mess. And then we still have, Confederate supporters, people talking about the heritage of the South. And you're like, okay, well, like, what did they want to do that the Union didn't want to do? Like, like, it's just, like, shit like that, where it's just, like, teaching about things in a certain way will always have political implications, especially because, like, the way a state educates its citizens is going to inform how they can treat their citizens, and it's going to inform how their citizens behave and act and feel about, like, what the government does. On a different note, though, talking about how something was uniquely bad because it happened in a civilized society is very fucked up. Civilized itself is always going to be a word that has racial implications, and it also has colonial implications. So let's just think about that before we say that word again.
I didn't expect my video about Yuval to blow up, but I'm standing on everything I said, and I'll provide a little more nuance and admit where I'm wrong. So firstly, I said that Palestine sits on trillions of dollars worth of oil, when in actuality I meant that Palestine sits on trillions of dollars worth of natural gas. And whether Palestine sits on oil or gas, the purpose of occupying that region of the world was to steal resources and to create a foothold for Western hegemony. In my video, I also said that 20 million Russian civilians died, when in actuality I meant that 20 million Soviet Union civilians died, which still carries the same weight because they are mostly ethnically Slavic, which means that 20 million people of the same ethnicity were still killed by Nazi Germany, so the point still stands. And to anyone saying that that is not genocide and it is just the casualties of war, I need you to realize that that is literally what Netanyahu is saying. He is not claiming that he's committing genocide, he's just saying that he's trying to win the war, and subsequently he's committing a genocide. So, and then I had a lot of people saying that the Holocaust was the worst genocide because of the percentage of Jewish people who were killed, but I need to remind you that Native Americans are not a monolith. There were different societies, religions, and languages amongst Native Americans in North America, and some of which were wiped entirely off the face of the earth and we will never know about. With all that being said, there is no worse genocide because all genocides are bad, but there is definitely an initiative to push certain things to the forefront of the Western mind because it benefits the Euro-colonial empire as a whole. And if that's not the case, then why do they idolize people like Christopher Columbus and John Cook? It's because they have to frame themselves in a good light regarding any colonial endeavors that they're a part of, whether that be North America, South America, Africa, or Palestine. And to wrap this up, I can see the analytics. The majority of you motherfuckers didn't even finish the video and just got to commenting because you felt triggered, which is cool, I guess, but what happened to open discourse? Like, come on, guys. Oh, and also, Yuval stands are hella racist. I've gotten some of the most racist comments that I've ever seen in my life within the last few days. Thank you so much.
People accepting apologies on my behalf from this man, I need you to understand that when you get frustrated, you don't turn to racialized language. That's not what you do, okay? You have to learn and unlearn how to undo that way of responding. If you're triggered, there are many different ways he could have hit me up in the DMs. He could have commented on the post. He could have tried to see where I was coming from, tried to gain understanding. Instead, he saw a Black woman talking with authority and immediately went to like 18th century scramble for Africa language. Like, that's not a mistake. And I want people to understand this. We are talking about grown ass people. Not only grown ass people, but grown ass people who have actively been taking space in this way. So for you to then, as soon as you feel triggered by a video that wasn't even directed at you, to go into scramble for Africa rhetoric, we got white man's burden rhetoric on aisle 2. Just because you felt triggered and you were committed to misunderstanding me, because that's the main point. The double down exposed it all. You didn't want to understand me. And I'm exhausted by what it is to like exist as a Black woman in this space. I really want to do an experiment and see, what do people actually hear when Black women get online and speak with authority? Because every time we're not given the benefit of the doubt. Every single time. We're never given the benefit of the doubt. We're never assumed to like know what we're talking about. We're never given grace if we fuck up or misstep or misspeak. None of that is ever a part of the conversation. So what do you hear when you hear me talking is what I want to know. Is it just blood-curdling screams? Is that why you react so angrily and viscerally? See, because this is the thing. That tone, the reason why I shut the video off after 2 minutes is really the clockable thing, is really the thing that I think people need to hammer home. You were talking down to me, Yuval. You didn't see me as an equal. You didn't even see me as someone that could possibly be correct. While you were the one in this situation who was not only dead ass wrong, but racist. What? You tried to frame me so hard and intentionally and put me in this position, and it backfired because I was on the side of truth and you were on the side of propaganda this time, babe. People were clocking you like, bro, you're intelligent, you're a linguist, you position yourself like this on this platform, and somehow what she was trying to say did not get through to you, you could not comprehend it? To the point that you continue to double down when there has been proof of me being correct. There's more proof every day that goes by that of me being correct. You were dedicated to positioning me and framing me as what you did before actually listening to me. And this is what I talk about. This is the thing. Race is such a fucking distraction. Shouts out to Toni Morrison for this, because how annoying is it for me to have to then get online, make a video reiterating my statement in softer terms for your ass to get it when my ass was right the first fucking time. I had to double back and make 2 other videos to engage with you because I was dealing with a level of hate on a platform that I've never had to deal with, that I've never had to experience, because you didn't understand what I was saying, because your implicit bias against a Black woman speaking made you dedicated to misunderstanding what I was talking about. And that's the point. That's why I don't accept the apology. That's why and then the double down, and then the third, no, bae, it's over. It's over. Like, it's over. I know exactly why you responded to me the way you responded to me. And you know too. And you were clocked for it. But I'm not giving no one the benefit of the doubt that has proven to me that they're dedicated to misrepresenting me and misunderstanding me. So that's that. I do want to say that I do 100% stand by that apology. I know people were saying you don't need to apologize. We got you the first time. I do not want any kind of, I don't want to allow for any kind of anti-Semitism or whatever, anti-Semite to feel comfortable thinking that I'm on that type of time. It was vague. It was true, but it was vague. My verbiage was vague, and that's what I apologize for, and I'm going to always apologize for that. So I'm sorry for that. I am. I truly am. You are spewing Zionist indoctrination and rhetoric, and that's why you were so viscerally mad. It's because you have not done the work to unlearn the stuff. Mind you, a lot of people have made a lot of amazing videos talking about how that's a lifelong project. Being indoctrinated into being a Zionist, being indoctrinated in a white supremacist society, you are going to be triggered because things are constantly going to push up against what you were taught was normal, what you were taught was right and wrong, what the morality was placed in that context of that way of thinking. And the point is, you read enough, you do the work, you engage enough to be able to recognize the patterns and the signs enough to say, okay, I may be viscerally triggered, but let me take a step back. Let me understand the optics. Let me understand and try and hear what this person is saying. Let me maybe Google it. Let me maybe ask a question before I jump out the window and go on a tirade. That's what unlearning is supposed to be indicative of. You don't just say you're unlearning and read books. It's situations like this that prove that you're doing the work or not. And baby, there's work to do. What I want us to learn is there is a pattern to how these things work. And you need to recognize a pattern. There's the 10 steps of genocide. Everyone should know that. So you can recognize it in your daily fucking life. That's all that I want people to understand. Qualifying words like worse or better don't have any business here. And we'll get into the oppression Olympics conversation at the end of this video. But that's all I have to say about that. Okay, so now we're at Yuval's apology, which is his second video, which is also the second video that's now since been deleted. But I'm sure if you look hard enough, you can find it on TikTok somewhere. Yummy. The first part was very much, now I'm seeing how bad it was that I didn't tag you directly. The same shit you put in my DMs, the same shit I put a one sentence answer to. Because I wasn't buying it, boo. I wasn't buying it. I know. You can say what you want to say. You can say you didn't mean it. You can say you meant it. All of this was intentional. The second part of the apology, the double down. And this is a thing. One of my mutuals made an incredible video on how to apologize. And shouts out to you. I love you for that. Because that video, that's not even remotely an apology. What the fuck? Like, and here's the thing. When it comes to these big creators, and I just need to say this, when you get caught up in hot water, boo, and people are asking you to apologize, you don't have to do that. If you truly believe what the fuck you said and you're saying it with your chest, stand on it. Don't shroud it in some lame, quiet, meek apology like, me, I'm sorry. But actually, your point this, your point that. That's not an apology, so don't even frame it as that. This is the thing with big creators that I want to talk about. You don't have to apologize, but also the double down is indicative of the internal vibe. I don't care if you're saying this is an apology. That shit wasn't an ass. So again, that video has long since been deleted, and there's a reason why. You're deleting videos left and right. I have not deleted one video yet, bae. It's still up. Everyone can see it in all its glory. Everyone can see the process of events in all its glory on my page. They can't say the same for you. And I'm grown. I've apologized, and I've been apologized to so many times that I know an apology that's like, shut up here. That wasn't going to fly with me. And I wasn't going to accept anything less than a genuine apology. And I know what those look like, and that wasn't that. So the double down is always where bigger creators fuck up, because they do have an audience. They do have an audience that's just openly going to support them no matter what. There's some people that are just so attached parasocially to you that it doesn't matter what you do. And that's fine, because the apology was really directed to me to accept, not to anyone else to accept. And I know that apology worked for some people. It was never going to slide for me. It wasn't genuine the first time. It wasn't genuine the second time. It shouldn't take you 2 videos to apologize. You could have taken the time to actually look at the information, look at what people were tagging you in, because all those videos started to come out after your response, your initial response to me. It's clear that your ass didn't listen to what people were telling you. You didn't value the information that people were giving you, and that's why your second video and that apology was bullshit. So, boom. Made the video where I'm in the red sweater, and I'm just kind of like, yo, I'm going to make a YouTube video about this. This is what it is. This is how I feel, child. You doubled down, and I exposed you for the DMs that you sent me, because don't feel comfortable enough to try and meekly talk to me in private when your ass framed me as a bigot, anti-Semitic, fucking black bitch to your 3 million people in public. Make the apology as loud as a disrespect, boo, and I'm not going to take it seriously. You're in my DMs. Oh, I'm seeing comments now that are saying that I didn't address the anti-blackness and da-da-da-da-da. That was one of the main things that people had an issue with. And you didn't try and write something out to make sure you addressed it? You thought you wanted people to accept this half-ass apology without accepting and talking your wrongdoings when it came to how you came into that conversation on some colonialist shit. Put you in a room at the Berlin conference, you fit right in. Like, that language was absolutely crazy. No, stand on it. Don't sit here on some wishy-washy shit. If you're coming out to apologize, then apologize, and apologize in totality, and take the time it takes in order to get it right and to get it genuine. If it's none of these things, it's not going to land well. And you completely omitting addressing one of the main critiques people had about you online in terms of your original video, then why post it? You thought you could get past and skate past not addressing the anti-indigenous, anti-black rhetoric that was ripe in that first video, and then also double down on me? Bae, no. It's just not gonna work that way. And it didn't work that way because, again, that video is deleted. Yeah, people are accepting your third apology on my behalf, child. That apology is ass on principle, because why are you making a third video addressing the situation? It just admits to me that you weren't listening and you didn't want to listen. And I don't have the time. I'm too grown. I'm 28. I'm not going to extend grace to somebody that has proven time and time again they want to mischaracterize me and misunderstand what I'm saying. You were being purposely obtuse. You know that. I know that. And that's just where we're going to leave that. That third video that's up that says better apology, it's not a better apology, because even in that video, see, this is how deep racism and bullshit goes. You guys don't understand how granular and how much of a waste of fucking space and time it is, but it consumes every aspect of your fucking life. In that third video, I heard it when he was like, and I want to personally thank these 2 creators that I tagged in the caption because they respectfully came to me and talked to me about what I did wrong, and now I'm making this better of an apology. First of all, again, off principle, the second apology is ass. You should have taken that time privately and come back with a real apology, one and done. But the fact that you had to double back and then delete the other one, it's ass. Secondly, the fact that you're qualifying them by saying they respectfully came to me. They respectfully, again, respectability politics. You will only listen to what people are telling you in the confines of how you deem it to be respectable. I don't have to be nice when I'm checking you. You called me a bigot. You framed me as a Holocaust denier publicly to 3 million people. You framed me as an anti-Semite. And now you'll only listen when people are coming to you like, well, Yuval, you missed here and blah, 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 blah. And I understand you have friends, you have relationships or whatever. People came to you how you needed to be came to. People checked you, rightfully so, because of how inflammatory that first video was. You don't deserve respect Why would someone respect you when you're over here saying civilized, dark corners of the world, belittling biological warfare, which is a tactic of genocide, in order to uplift, again, what happened to your people over what happened to everyone?
Sorry, I've been editing this video for hours and I keep having technical difficulties, but I'm almost done, so I'm just going to say this really fast, plop it at the end, and just do it that way. Sorry, I look kind of crazy. I'm just exhausted from editing this. Okay, so Yuval's last video, most recent video that he posted was basically him regurgitating what everyone had been said from the first video. Again, on principle, it's just annoying. And that's why I think it's like, just take time off. I don't understand why they're so opposed to taking like a little bit of time off, maybe posting things that are like already pre-recorded, or if you have any obligations, like do that. But like don't just rush back into it constantly. Like when someone had messaged me or like they put another comment on a video to get my attention and told me, it was just kind of like, I can't believe you're making another video. This is the fourth video in a week. The first two were bad. The third one was okay. People, it's just like, let people breathe. Let people just like digest and figure it out. At the end of the day, you will always have your core audience. They will always support you, clearly, because they were taking all the apologies on my behalf, on their own behalf. So they were just looking for a reason to have you say, okay, I publicly apologize. They could tell that to anyone who still had an issue with you, and they could continue to move on. But it's like, if you genuinely wanted to come back on a good tip, you would have taken those 3, 4, 5 days to like talk to your friends, discuss things, hear people out, watch all the videos, actually like listen to what people were suggesting and saying, because not everyone came at you crazy. A lot of people who were discussing it on my side were discussing it in general, but also sharing information. It's you who came out hella snarky, but it's like, had you not come out hella snarky the first time and taken those extra days to listen and just consume and take a moment, by last Friday, you could have come out with like an apology that was decent and just been like, all the things that you needed to address, written it out, practiced it a few times, had other friends look it over, all of these things to make sure you are coming out as properly as you could. But you could tell that these are all trying to save face. Now you're shoving caste in my face. Now you're shoving the Holocaust industry in my face in these videos. And it's like, I'm glad you have the books. I'm glad you're reading the books. I'm glad you may have read the books. But it's time for you to unlearn and process what those books were actually talking about and discuss and think why you came at me so crazy, unprovoked, for no reason. That's really the crux of the problem. And why, when you came at me so crazy and when you were triggered, it went to racism. Those are the conversations you need to ask yourself. Those are the things you need to publicly apologize for. Those are the things that you need to acknowledge. It's not really much else. You don't need to shove your copy of Caste in my face to try and show like, oh, I have the book that everyone told me to get, and I read it. There's a highlighter mark in here, like, see, and it's like, we see. Do you see? Like, that's really the person who needs to see. So again, off principle, it's just annoying because it's like, this is your 15,000th video, and it's like, just let it be. Let it rest. Had you come back on like Thursday or Friday after taking a break with a good, genuine apology, you sat down, you addressed me directly, as well as your audience, as well as the people who were offended specifically in the groups that they were, and like address how, you realized that you were, shocked and surprised by your reaction in general. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and you're trying to work that process out in your mind. It would have been accepted. I would have been like, you know what, Yuval, no hard feelings. You know what I mean? It is what it is. Like, I can understand that not everyone's perfect. Everyone has their day. It was the double down that really sealed the deal for most people, because a lot of people were willing to extend that grace to you because they know you and they like you and you're part of their day-to-day shit. So yeah, I think that's just kind of how I feel about it in general. Like, at this point, I'm a lot less mad than I was when I filmed the original video. This is literally Sunday that I'm editing this and doing this, but it's like, yeah,
I think that's kind of how most people feel. So yeah, get with that. Okay, so my final thoughts. Hey, we made it to the final stretch. Final thoughts on this whole situation. Number one, we're gonna just do this quick succession. Oppression Olympics conversation. White people have this thing of taking sayings that originated in a nuanced way and making them very binary and black and white. I think woke is one of those statements, because when I use woke and y'all use woke, it's two different wokes. I'm using the woke that's in the Erykah Badu song, Master Teacher. Okay, you're using that woke shit. You're using it as either a derogatory thing or a positive thing, but it's never nuanced. And that's my problem. Being woke is to be aware. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. The Oppression Olympics is another one of these terms that was once nuanced when it was centered in BIPOC discussions. But now it's not. And I think it's just important to point this out. I think the Oppression Olympics talking point is now stupid, because you have made it so binary that it's just used as a way to disengage. It's not used in its proper form. Its proper form was to say, like I was saying, you can, because here's the thing, there's a difference between comparing something and saying something is worse and better. Comparing is saying, okay, they did it this way, but they did it that way. What are the differences? What are the similarities? That's what comparing is. Saying worst, best, better, horrible, those are qualifying words that are framing something as hierarchical. Being comparative doesn't have to be hierarchical. Being comparative is simply saying these are the tenets of this, these are the tenets of that. Where do they overlap? Where do they converge? Where do they disengage from each other? So when the Oppression Olympics comes up and people are just like, oh, well, you're trying to play the Oppression Olympics, and I think that's fucked up. And it's like, yeah, well, because I'm saying real points and you don't want to engage with my point. So now you can, by way of this saying, because you co-opted another thing again and made it mean something completely different. Nothing is worse or better or whatever. Again, as I said in that video, it's all fucking relative to who you are, your exposure, your experience. And that depends on community, conditionality, where you learn shit, how you learn shit. That's all relative. That's what that's referring to. So saying this is worse than that was never the conversation. Ever. It was, how did we get here, and how do we get here, and what are the similarities and what's the differences? That's comparative. That's comparative. But you guys like to say, Oppression Olympics, she's doing the Oppression Olympics, just so that you don't have to engage in discourse. And it's annoying, and I see through it. You just want to take up the vocabulary, suck it up like a sponge, and shit it out so no one can ever talk about shit. This is a conversation that needs to be had, and you refusing to engage in it doesn't make it any less poignant, any less important, and any less valuable. So shut up. Shut up. It's now dumb. You've now made it reductive. I hate it now. Stop saying it, because when you're saying it, you're trying to remove yourself from having to actually engage in discourse. So stop. Let's see. And then it's just so rich that he used that to, in his condescending tone, like, I think it's weird when people do that. Then I'm gonna continue to do that. It's just like, bro, like, it's just, that video was something that was just like, as I said in my last response, it couldn't have been a better example of my point. Just couldn't have. I couldn't have paid someone to make a better example of the point that I was trying to make. And that's why it's deleted. In conclusion, I just have a couple things to say. In this video, I just want to say thank you everybody who got in the field for me, who actively said something in the comment sections, made videos, sent support, followed me. All of these things were just incredible. And I've never felt so seen online in terms of what I've been piecing together over the past year, 2 years with my YouTube channel, with this podcast. And I just want to genuinely say thank you. I love you and I appreciate it to the deepest degree. I really, truly appreciate it. There are donation links in the bio for Congo, Sudan, and Palestine. So please hit the links, donate where you feel comfortable, what you feel comfortable. I highly encourage that. That's very, very deeply important. And all the creators' videos that I put into this video, please go check these creators out. Please go follow them. Please subscribe if they have YouTubes. Please subscribe to their YouTubes. They're incredibly intelligent people. They are incredibly sweet people for doing what they did for me. And I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for letting me use this video, your videos. Thank you for everything. Thank you for the DM conversations. Thank you for it all. I'm feeling seen. I'm feeling loved. All my mutuals. Thank you. I just appreciate it so much. So thank you for that. And let's see. Oh yeah, people have been saying book list. There are some books that have been repeatedly recommended, but I have 2 friends that are trying to be librarians. I'm down to compile some sort of book list and put it on my Substack. And maybe if you guys want, we can try and organize something where we can like read one book together and then go on live and talk about it. I don't know. We can figure something out. But I think that would be super fun. So let me know in the comments if you're interested in that. I mean, learning is hard, but if we learn together, if we traverse things together, that'd be great. Some of those books that were recommended, I haven't read. I really want to read The Holocaust Industry. So if you want to start off with that book, let me know in the comment section. And let me know if you're interested in the book club in general. Like, comment, subscribe, put that bell notification on. Thank you for listening to me rant. After this video is over, it's over. I don't care. I don't care what he does. I don't care what he says. I'm not going to address it anymore. I've moved on from it on my TikTok and I'm moving on from it in my life in general. But I had to speak on it and immortalize it. This was my first online drama and I survived to tell the tale. So yeah, all I have to say is Black Lives Matter and free Palestine until it's backwards. Love you guys. Mwah. Mwah.